All right, today we're going to peel back the layers on something pretty complex, the internal world of the narcissistic personality. We're going to try and get a real sense of what's actually going on inside their head. You know, this quote just nails the central puzzle we're digging into, doesn't it? It paints this incredible picture of a huge, vibrant display that might just be hiding something way, way darker underneath.
I bet you have. It's a feeling a lot of us can probably relate to, right? That person who is just so magnetic. But then, over time, you start to see these little cracks in the facade. Well, that feeling, that's exactly where we're going to start this explainer.
So let's start with that first layer, the one everybody gets to see, the charismatic outer shell. This is their public face, you know? The super alluring persona that just draws people in.
So all these traits you see here, they work together to build that perfect front. They have this chameleon-like ability to adapt, which makes them seem like they can fit in absolutely anywhere with anyone. They can come across as incredibly confident, puffed up like a peacock. But like the source material suggests, this is almost always a performance. It's a very carefully built charisma designed to hide what they're really feeling inside.
But once you get a peek behind that charismatic shell, you find something totally different. You find a core that is incredibly rigid and completely self-focused. And this is the absolute key. The source calls this a disease of self-admiration. Think about that. It's a condition that basically locks them in place. It makes it almost impossible for them to see their own flaws, let alone ever think about working on them. It's a total roadblock to any kind of genuine self-improvement.
And this comparison? Wow. It just perfectly illustrates the bizarre logic of that unchanging core. See, their emotional world is pointed outward in a really specific way. Happiness isn't something they find inside themselves. No, it comes from spoiling it for other people. And what about failure? Oh, that's never their fault. It's always blamed on some outside force, even something as wild as witchcraft. Anything to avoid taking personal responsibility.
So all of this leads us straight to how they operate in the world, which our source material calls a kind of hunter's mentality. It's how they move through life to serve that self-centered core we were just talking about.
This little four-step process is pretty much their go-to strategy. They hunt for whatever it is they want, they hoard it to keep it from others, and they're always scheming to get their way. But I want you to pay really close attention to that last step, fleeing. This is so important. It's all about avoiding a direct fight, avoiding accountability at all costs.
And don't get it twisted. This isn't some grand, long-term Machiavellian plan. Not at all. It's way more implosive. A moment-to-moment kind of existence that's purely focused on what's in it for them. The impact on other people, the pain it might cause, that stuff just doesn't even enter the calculation.
So you might be wondering, how do they justify all this to themselves? Well, let's peel back one more layer and step inside the world of delusion that works 24/7 to protect their incredibly fragile ego.
Okay, delusion number one. This deep-seated belief that taking, whether it's stuff, attention, or just plain happiness, will finally fill that hole inside them. But the source is really clear on this. They're never satisfied. It's just a bottomless pit, a hunger that can never, ever be filled. Then there's the second delusion, which is kind of like a psychological seesaw. The thinking is, if they can just push other people down, belittle them and make them feel small, then they, in turn, will somehow feel bigger and more important. But in reality, it usually just brews more anger and envy inside of them. And finally, we have projection. This one is a really powerful psychological defense. Basically, by taking all their own flaws, all their own negative traits, and just casting them onto other people, they get to keep this image of themselves as totally blameless and pure. It's like a magic trick for getting rid of any and all fault.
And this slide right here gives us a chillingly practical example of how all these delusions play out. When things are calm, they use photos to build that perfect facade, the image of a warm, loving family. But the moment conflict starts, that camera turns into a weapon. They actually document their victim's anger or distress to create proof that they're the calm, innocent one in the whole mess. It's all about controlling the story.
So if they can't actually grow as people because they're stuck in these delusions, where does all of their energy go? This brings us to our final and maybe the most crucial point of all.
It really all comes down to this simple fact. All their effort, all their focus goes into one thing, making the mask better. The true self, the person underneath, stays stuck, undeveloped. But that false self, that charismatic shell we talked about at the very beginning, that is constantly being polished, refined, and perfected.
It's the performance of a lifetime. And that just leaves us with this one final kind of lingering question. If all the work, all the improvement is poured into the facade, what exactly is left of the person underneath? It's a thought that really gets to the tragic core of this whole thing. Thanks for joining me for this one.